Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the GRCV Hoops podcast. My name is Gavin Campbell, and it is just me again today. Going to be running solo. Rick could not be with me today. He is on a trip right now. He'll be back in a couple weeks, but I'll try to hold down the fort while he is away. First topic on the list today, we're going to jump right into it. Los Angeles Clippers signed Lou Williams to a 3-year contract extension. This, I think, was unexpected by a lot of people due to the fact that there were so many offers being thrown at Lou for the way he's been playing as of late. Definitely one of his best seasons, if not his best season this year for the Clippers. Unfortunately, there's a 60-day trade restriction that comes along with signing an extension like this, which means that he will not be able to be traded until next season. So he's off the block as of today. The Clippers still have yet to move DeAndre Jordan or Avery Bradley. So you have to ask the question, will they be moved or will they be granted extensions by tomorrow afternoon as well? It's interesting to think about now that they have Lou, what do they do going forward with DeAndre? We know that he was also on the trade block for the Clippers, and trade packages, including both of them, Lou Williams and Jordan, obviously gone now. Maybe the Cavs are still looking to acquire DJ. I know Milwaukee was interested, as well as a couple other teams in the mix. Avery Bradley, I'm really not sure where he would go. He seems like he would be a great fit on a contender somewhere, just being a defensive player for what he's known for in the league today. We also know that he's capable of hitting the outside shot as well as being aggressive in the lane. I don't see them keeping Bradley on the roster, but them re-signing Lou Williams makes me think that they want to make a push for the playoffs. Or we'll get into something a little bit later on this topic. I think Jerry West is doing some planning behind the scenes for this upcoming free agency period. As far as DeAndre Jordan is concerned, I think they'll either re-sign him or they'll ship him out to Cleveland or Milwaukee. I don't think that he is a piece that would be moved anywhere else due to his contract and the fact that it expires at the end of the year. So, with that said, I would look for the Clippers to move both Bradley and Jordan at this point in time. I believe the extension to Lou Williams feeds into my next point here, is that the Williams extension is part of Jerry West's plan to, I believe, and this is completely hypothetical, but that I believe is in his plan to get LeBron James in free agency this year. Now, hear me out on this. Lou Williams is someone that LeBron was adamant about getting via trade this year to bring him to the Cavs. And now that he's locked up for 3 more years, and as well as the rest of this season, he can't be traded anymore. And if West was to get DeAndre Jordan's contract off the books, and Avery Bradley's contract is up at the end of the season, so that's money coming off the Clippers' books, and then with that, you'd have enough room to sign LeBron James to a max contract. And we know that LeBron was wanting to play with Lou Williams. Maybe that entices him to, go to Los Angeles. I know that it sounds crazy because Lou Williams, how would he entice somebody to, come join their team? But, I mean, Lou is underrated in this league, and I'm a big fan of him. I know that I enjoyed his time in Toronto, even though I thought that it was short-lived. Winning 6th Man of the Year, up in the 6 on 6, right? But no, Lou is. I think that this is somehow going to play a part in what Jerry West does to try and get LeBron. We know that he is one of the best people to have in your front office for a franchise. So I think going forward, Bradley and Jordan will be dealt accordingly, but the deadline is up in less than 24 hours. It's roughly 2:30 p.m. Central Time right now, so less than 24 hours away is the NBA trade deadline. It'll be interesting to see what the Los Angeles Clippers put together, as well as everybody else. We'll have to see what the Cavs are doing with their struggles, especially after blowing that 21-point lead over the Orlando Magic yesterday night. I mean, they just completely fell apart. I mean, Isaiah Thomas had a great first quarter, and then after that, the next 3 quarters were just abysmal. And that's what the that's pretty much how the month of January and the first week of February has been going for him, as well as the rest of the team. LeBron James just looks completely out of character. I mean, he looks shot, like he's ready to throw in the towel. And I know that his press conference or post-game press conference that he gave to the media in the locker room, he said that he would not waive his no trade clause so that he may go to another team. He said he's in it for the long haul, I believe was his quote. But I mean, with Isaiah Thomas on that team and Kevin Love being out for at least another 5 weeks, I mean, you have to think, what can they do? And listen here, okay, if Cleveland doesn't make a move, if Cleveland fails to make a move within these next 24 hours, then they're not making the finals. I mean, unless something drastic happens and there's a change of attitude and atmosphere in that locker room. If LeBron can somehow get those guys going, if Isaiah Thomas can come back even a fraction of his former self, I mean, they'll be contenders to come out of the East. But I mean, going up against the Warriors and the Rockets or the Spurs, whoever, I mean, they're done. The Cavs are done this year. I'm just telling it like it is. It'll be, if they don't make a move, it'll be either the Raptors or the Celtics coming out of the East, and they will make it to the NBA Finals. It will not be Cleveland this year, which again would play a part in LeBron James's free agency. I mean, if Cleveland were to get bounced in the second round of the playoffs, which is very likely at this point in time, where does he go? We talked about Houston and obviously those ridiculous rumors about him joining the Golden State Warriors. That's not going to happen. But I mean, really, realistic options for him. Where does he go? Because if Cleveland does not make a move, they have the Nets first round pick that is probably going to be top 7 guaranteed, and they're going to get a player for the future, a young blood for the future, and LeBron's not going to be he's not going to be a part of that franchise anymore. Figuratively speaking, obviously he'll be a part of Ohio and Cleveland and Akron and his brand, but his days for playing for the Cavs look like they're about over. But getting into a trade that actually did go through a couple days ago, the Milwaukee Bucks traded guard Rashawn Vaughn and a 2018 second-round pick to the Brooklyn Nets for center Tyler Zeller. John Henson is currently out with a hamstring injury and will most likely miss the next 2 to 3 games for Milwaukee. So Tyler Zeller is probably going to get some immediate playing time playing with Thon Maker, probably in the ballpark of 16 to 20 minutes a game. I think that Milwaukee did this because John Henson is hurt and they're trying to establish themselves as a top-tier playoff team in the Eastern Conference right now. I think last time I checked, they were either the 6 or 7 seed. I'll have to go back and check. The Eastern Conference has been changing day by day with teams, losing, winning a couple games here and there. I know Miami's been shuffling around. They're towards the bottom of the pack now after being in the 4th spot for a couple days. So the East is really wide open once you get past the top 2 after Boston and Toronto. I think the Wizards are 1 game behind the Cavs now. It's getting crazy in the East. And to see how that'll play out up until the All-Star break, and then we'll have some stability for a few days. But until then, I mean, it's interesting to see how everything shuffles around like it does with teams winning and losing, like I said. But I think going back to this trade, Milwaukee made this trade to establish themselves as a top-tier team in the Eastern Conference with Giannis playing the way that he is, Chris Middleton stepping up, and Jabari Parker came back a few days ago. I think it was last week. He actually looks not quite the player that he was when he went down, but he looks like he'll be able to come back into form and fit in just nicely like he was pre-injury. So that is very promising for the Bucks. But no, they got Tyler Zeller to quote-unquote replace Henson while he's out right now. He had a really good game the other night, close to a 20-point, 15-rebound night, which is really crazy if you think about it. Him coming off the bench, we never really hear Henson's name thrown around of a guy that's getting 20 in 10 games. But it was a solid performance from him, and I believe the Bucks came out with a win, so that's always a plus. But Zeller playing for the Nets, I mean, I don't really know much about him. I haven't been watching Brooklyn games this season ever since D'Angelo Russell went down. And since he's come back, he has not been himself whatsoever. And not only that, he's on my fantasy team, so, been a little disappointing this year. Not this year, but since he's come back from injury. But Zeller, I think that he'll fit into the Milwaukee system just fine. I think that this is another Plumlee situation when he was there with them, another Hawes situation. I think that he'll not stretch the floor for you, but I mean, I think he's capable of hitting that 12-foot jump shot, 15-foot jump shot on occasion. I think that he's got decent footwork around the basket. You'll get your money's worth out of Zeller. Was he worth a second-round pick? Sure. I mean, it's Milwaukee's second-round pick, so they're going to be a playoff team. That's going to be in the 40s, late 40s when it comes to draft picks this year in the upcoming draft. So unless someone gets a diamond in the rough, I think that it was fine. Especially Rashad Vaughn. Haven't heard anything about Vaughn this season. I looked up his stats prior to coming in today. He's only played a couple handful of games this season. I remember when they drafted him, I think it was back in 2014 or 2015. They expected him to grow into this player that would be consistent for him and really give them a boost off their bench, and it just never really worked out. So, I mean, giving up a guy that's not even a role player for you, along with a second-round pick that's almost meaningless, go ahead. I mean, this trade's almost meaningless in itself, but, if you need to get a replacement quick, and then they'll probably sit Henson for the next 10 days until after the All-Star break, let him come back in a couple weeks, and then Zeller's minutes will come down. But if that's what the Bucks think they needed to do in order to, keep Pat with the other teams in the Eastern Conference, then by all means, I don't think that this was a bad move for them at all. Looking at the Nets side of things, I mean, they're getting back a player that, I mean, Vaughn's probably not going to play much for them. If they do play him, it probably won't be more than 10 minutes a game on a good night. So they are getting a second-round pick, which, I mean, this is good. The Nets get another pick. We know that they have the first-round pick from the Toronto Raptors this year in the upcoming draft due to the DeMarre Carroll trade that happened. But, I mean, they get a second-round pick. The Nets they're depleted of draft picks right now, so they're trying to stock up on anything that they can get. And the Raptors' first-round pick, I mean, they're second in the East right now, so that's going to be a high 20s draft pick, probably 24, 25, 26, something like that when it's all said and done. So, I mean, at least they're getting to draft players. I mean, they haven't been able to do this for a few years now, ever since that ridiculous Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Gerald Wallace deal that they had where they gave Danny Ainge every pick they had for the next, God knows, 5-6 years, whatever it was at the time. So for the Nets, they get another draft pick, and they're giving up a guy that really wasn't helping them anyway. I think they have 19 or 20 wins so far this season, so they're not really doing much. Like I said earlier, I think that they are 7th overall in the standings, so clearly not a playoff team. We thought that they might have been able to turn it around with D'Angelo Russell's return, but that's looking imminent, and it's not going to happen. So we're going to move over to another Eastern Conference team. And going back to it, I hope that trade got things going. I know that it was pre-Lou Williams extension, but I want to see some more trades happen. I enjoyed the trade deadline that we had a couple years ago, or I believe 3 years ago now, when we had that crazy 4-team deal with like the Heat, the Suns, the Celtics, and I believe the Nuggets, if I'm not mistaken. Something crazy like that to shake up the shape of the NBA would be great right now. But like I said, getting on to another Eastern Conference team, this is terrible. I know last week we talked about all the injuries that happened, but we had another one, and I tell you what, this is a huge blow. But it could be, if he comes back the same player, this could be a positive for New York. But the New York Knicks star forward Kristaps Porzingis is out for the year. He went out in the second quarter of the Knicks-Bucks game yesterday, and shortly after heading to the locker room, team doctors confirmed that Porzingis did indeed tear his ACL, and we will be out at least 10 months. Again, terrible news. But if we look at this, if Porzingis is down, the Knicks were not looking like they were going to make the playoffs. They didn't look like they were in a position to make a move to acquire someone that would help them get to the playoffs to pair with Porzingis. However, now that Porzingis isn't playing and their really only superstar is out, the Knicks need to start tanking and hope for a top spot in the upcoming lottery, because this 2018 draft class is stacked. Okay, they need to hope that Porzingis can come back next year healthy, That way, when they do get this top pick, they can pair it with Porzingis, whoever it may be, a Michael Porter Jr., a DeAndre Ayton, really anybody. If the Knicks can get a top 7 pick, I mean, they'll pretty much be guaranteed to get a stud this year. That's how stacked this draft class is. But if they can get someone like that and pair them with Porzingis next year, I think that the Knicks are looking up. Instead of being around the 30 win range, maybe they get closer to the 40, 45 win mark and get back to the playoffs for the first time since I think 2013 when they had Melo and they went on that crazy run. But I mean, this sucks for Porzingis. Let's be straight up about it, because being 7'3" and having a knee injury this early in your career, you hope that your body would be able to come back from it and recover appropriately. But we've noticed, especially throughout NBA history, when big men suffer foot injuries, knee injuries, anything lower body, it's never good. I mean, we saw it happen with Bill Walton. We've seen it with Sam Bowie, Greg Oden, even though it was a pre-existing injury. I mean, this is a reoccurring thing, and we hope that Porzingis can come back from this. And just as an example, because it's the best we've ever seen someone come back from an ACL injury. When Adrian Peterson came back from his ACL tear, I think it was 4 years ago, he almost broke the NFL rushing record coming off of an ACL injury last season. So it's possible, because he was up there towards the end of his prime, or his career for that matter. So it is possible. We've seen it in other sports, but just as an example, I mean, this guy is still young. I mean, this is his 3rd year in the league. I think he's 21 years old. So I don't think there's anything to worry about as long as he takes his rehabilitation process slowly. Just take it easy. You know that you're done for the season. Do your training camp through the summer, and then if you need to miss the first month of the season or first month and a half of the season just to get yourself right, I think you have to do that. So we hope that he can come back. We hope the Knicks now, at least I hope, and I hope Knicks fans are on board with me, that they need to tank the rest of this season. Try to get the best draft pick you possibly can, because this is the first time since Porzingis and Frank, my goodness, what is his name? Ntilikina, I think is his last name, Frank Ntilikina, that they have had their first pick. Prior to those two guys, we know that whole kerfuffle with Isaiah Thomas the old Isaiah Thomas, Pistons Isaiah Thomas, when he took over front office management for that team, and it was just a mess. I mean, trading first pick after first pick after first pick to really anybody and anyone that was willing to make a deal, and all those bad contracts that he signed people to back in, I think, not early 2000, but maybe like 2003, 2004, and then all the way up until, I believe, 2010. So they're finally starting to get back on track, and if they can get back to the playoffs, that would be great, not just for the city of New York and their fans, but I think for the NBA as a whole. We know New York is one of the biggest markets out there, not just for basketball, but for sports in general. So we wish nothing but Kristaps the best. Thoughts and prayers go out to him and a speedy recovery. Knicks, please start tanking. Please start tanking. Embrace the tank. At least, if not for me, for your fans, please. Getting on to another topic, the Golden State Warriors. This is very interesting, actually. Now that I'm looking at it again, I wrote it down prior to the show, but now this is really interesting. The Golden State Warriors are now 1-4 combined versus the Houston Rockets and the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Warriors lost at home last night to OKC, 125-105. It was a 20-point loss at home. Ridiculous. I think Russ and Paul George combined for over 70 points together, and Russ had that crazy 21-point first quarter. It was a great game to watch. I saw the highlights. I wasn't able to watch it live, but it looked like a really good game, whoever was able to catch that. Golden State is now only one game ahead of Houston for the 1 seed in the West. With the Thunder closing the gap on the 3 and 4 seeds, could the Rockets potentially beat out the Warriors for the top dog in the Western Conference? Well, I think the first half of this says it all, that they are combined 1-4. That means that they've played 5 games against these two teams and have only won 1 time. I know with the Thunder's struggles earlier this season, we didn't think that they were going to be a factor unless they were able to figure it out, and sure enough, they figured it out. We knew that Paul George was a potential trade piece for the Thunder, if things were not meshing well. Another interesting thing to add that I just remembered is Melo only played, I think, 4 or 6 minutes in this game, and then he went out, and the Thunder were still able to put up 125 points. So think about that. They didn't have their third best player on the court, but they were still able to outscore Golden State by 20. Just something to put out there. We know how lethal Golden State's offense can be, especially when they're at home and they got the crowd behind them. But can the Rockets beat the Golden State Warriors out for that top dog spot in the Western Conference, if I can get it out? I think it's very possible. Not only because of Golden State's record between these two teams, but because of Chris Paul's injury early in the season and then James Harden injury for the 2.5 weeks he was out with that hamstring strain. Without them, they were still able to win. And you think about that. You're down your number one player. You're down your number two player for a combined 2 months, maybe 2.5 months. I can't remember how long Chris Paul was out after that first game against the Warriors. I mean, that is impressive to be only one game out in the Western Conference. Think about that, too, with all the talent that's stacked up in the West. One game out of the top seed in the Western Conference, and you were without your second and first best player for a combined 2 months, both being out respectively at separate times. But think about that. I mean, this is a team that's full of role players. We got Ryan Anderson, Trevor Ariza. I won't call Clint Capella a role player. I think he's a solidified starter in this league with the way that he's been playing as of late. But I mean, you just think about that kind of thing. I mean, Eric Gordon, obviously, a potential sixth man of the year this year again. But I mean, really, it's a bunch of 3-point shooters, a couple guys that can play defense, and then you have your star duo of Chris Paul and James Harden. I mean, this is not the Warriors. The Warriors have a 2-time MVP in Steph Curry. They have an MVP in Kevin Durant. They have Defensive Player of the Year in Draymond Green, and they have one of the greatest 3-point shooters in Klay Thompson. Not only that, they have a great bench that includes Andre Iguodala, and then they also have Sean Livingston. I mean, they really have two guys that could be starting anywhere else coming off their bench. But Houston is able to do this with two superstars, a starting center, and a bunch of role players. I mean, think about that. And they're only one game out. And on top of that, their two guys have been injured for a significant period of time. Not to say that Steph wasn't out for a few weeks with his, I think it was either a knee or an ankle injury. I can't remember. But he did miss some time. But I do think that they will be able to get this top seed. If it's not before the All-Star break, I think that they will be able to take it. But not only based on this information here, but just watching them play. And I think that, not to say Coach Steve Kerr is a bad coach, but Mike D'Antoni of the Houston Rockets, I think I don't want to say he's underrated. I think he might be underappreciated. And what I mean by that is underappreciated from other teams in the league, because I think he does get the respect by being who he is and where his team is at right now and what he's able to do with them. But I just think that he's underappreciated in a sense that, we give Steve Kerr the credit for, what the Warriors are able to do, and that it's like, oh, he's such a great coach. But, I mean, it has to be the players too, right? I mean, if you put anyone else in Steve Kerr's shoes with the roster that he has, you would expect them to be great, nothing less. So if we look at Mike D'Antoni and what he's been able to do with 2 superstars instead of 4, I think that really says it all. And the way that he's able to get his guys to buy into his system and saying, we're going to put up as many threes as possible and we're going to play defense. And that's it. I mean, you got Rule 1 and Rule 2, right? And if you're able to get guys to buy in with that system, I think that's just incredible. And then to have it work on top of that. Obviously, it doesn't work if players don't buy in, but to get it to work at this level in this conference, the West, I mean, to me, I just think that the Rockets have a better shot of not only winning the West, but I think they have a better shot to get to the finals as of now. Not to mention the problem that the Warriors have with Kevin Durant and Draymond Green and their ejections. Not to mention Draymond Green's 13 or 14 technical fouls he's already gotten this year, which you would think that Kevin Durant would be leading that. The fact that he has had 4 ejections so far this season, and we're not even at the All-Star break. I'm not sure if they're tired, if the Warriors are tired, or if they're, something's going on, and I'm not sure what it is. And unless they fix it, I do think that they will be dethroned this year, just like Obviously not to the extent that the Cavaliers are, because the Cavs are going through something detrimental. I don't know what is going on with that locker room. I don't know what happened to Jay Crowder. I don't know what happened to LeBron ever since Isaiah Thomas came back. I sure as hell don't know what happened to Isaiah Thomas, wherever his talent went. I mean, that hip must have just taken everything out of him, because it's been a month now and we haven't seen very minimal glances of what he was last year. Maybe a half-second glimpse of what he was last year. I mean, it's starting to get to the point where it's ridiculous, and they need to do something about it. The Cavs need to either trade him or put him on the bench, because it's not going to work. Because before Isaiah Thomas came back, the Cavs were looking great, at least offensively. Their defense was still abysmal, but at least they were able to outscore their opponents. Now they can't even do that. I'm not sure if they're still in the top 10 in offense. I think they might have fallen out. If they're not, if they haven't, then they're either 10th, because there's no way that they were able to sustain that top 5 offense like they had earlier in the season. So, but that, I mean, I'm probably rambling on too much. I'm going to get off of that, and we'll just move on to the next topic here. But I did briefly mention the Thunder in that piece, so we'll go ahead and talk about one of the Thunder players here with Paul George. With his success this season with the Oklahoma City Thunder, kind of segueing into the rumors about him going to Los Angeles that we heard all of last summer when he was with Indiana, and saying like, yeah, Los Angeles, I love the Lakers and X, Y, and Z, right? We know that Paul is a Los Angeles guy, and we know the Lakers have tried to quote unquote finesse him, into coming to LA. But with OKC's success, Paul George has come out and said, yeah, Oklahoma City might not be too bad. Maybe I want to stay here. With Russ, I think him and Russ are really becoming good friends, if not, kind of like a brotherhood kind of deal going on. And we know that's how Russ treated KD until he, at least to me, backstabbed him in Oklahoma City. So we know that Russ is he's a good guy, especially to his teammates, and he treats you like family. So with that going on, it looks like Paul George is probably going to stay in OKC. If they make it to the Western Conference Finals, maybe even second round. I think if they win a first-round series and then they get bounced by either Golden State or Houston, then I think that would be considered success, because they went out in the first round last year. So if you make it to the second round, I think that would be considered a successful season, and I think George might consider re-signing, at least for a couple years to match his contract with Westbrook, at least for a couple years. But with that said, the Los Angeles Lakers are probably looking at the class of 2019 free agency rather than 2018 this summer that's coming up. I believe this is mostly due to the injury of DeMarcus Cousins, LeBron's decision, probably not going to go to Los Angeles, and then obviously what I just mentioned, OKC's success, Paul George probably going to re-sign there with Russell Westbrook. I think the Lakers are waiting another year to make their big moves, not only because of that, but there's other free agents that are coming up that may or may not be more enticing to them. Players such as Kyrie Irving, Jimmy Butler, Klay Thompson, and even Kawhi Leonard. His contract is also up because of his player option. We think that he will probably decline that, especially with the salary cap as high as it is now. So with that said, if they're not going to go after one of these big-name free agents this year, next year, especially with other contracts coming off the books, I believe that they have a good shot at maybe not getting Kyrie. I think Kyrie, depending on what happens the rest of this year and next year, I think he'll probably stay in Boston. After he plays the season with Gordon Hayward next year and seeing the success that they can build upon there, he'll probably stay in Boston. Jimmy Butler, I'm not sure what his future looks like in Minnesota right now. I think it'll be interesting to see how the rest of this year plays out. If I were to guess how he was going to play it, I would say that he would stay. Not only because the success that they're having, but also because that his head coach, Tom Thibodeau, we know that they have a great relationship. So I think depending on what Minnesota does, especially if Minnesota can win a playoff series, my goodness, I don't see why he wouldn't stay there. No matter what happens next year, even if they get bounced in the first round next year, if they win a playoff series, I think that is a good chance that Jimmy will resign. Now, this is where it gets interesting, though, is Klay Thompson. we really don't know what he's going to do, especially let's say Golden State loses. Let's say they lose in the Western Conference Finals. Let's say they don't even make it to the finals this year. He's still under contract next year, but if they lose this year in the conference finals, and then next year, let's say something happens and they either lose in the second round or they lose in the conference finals again, who's to say that he doesn't try to go do his own thing, right? Because we know that he's always played second fiddle to Steph Curry. We know he's had his moments. He obviously had that record-setting third quarter. I believe it was last year or the year before that. I believe it was 2 years ago. That was nuts. So we know what he's capable of. I mean, Klay Thompson is Steph Curry without the handles. Let's be honest. I mean, their range is almost identical. His shot obviously takes a little longer to get off because I still to this day don't understand how Curry flicks the ball up from 37 feet and gets it to go in every single time, or at least most of the time. But Klay is definitely capable of doing these things. So you have to think, well, what if he wanted to go somewhere else and be the guy? What if he wanted to go somewhere else and, maybe be the second option instead of the third option? Because with Kevin Durant and Steph Curry on that team, obviously you're not going to be the second option. Obviously not the first option. So, I mean, what if he were to go somewhere else with, maybe Washington? Pair up with Bradley Beal, John Wall, Klay Thompson. I mean, you'd have a big three right there with those guys. I mean, Klay would obviously be your second option at that point. Maybe first. I don't know how John would feel about that because the ball is in his hands. It'd be interesting to see how that played out, though. It'd be really interesting because Scott Brooks is the head coach of that team, and he was the coach of OKC Thunder when they blew that 3-1 lead in the Western Conference Finals against the Warriors. Another thing is Kawhi Leonard and his ordeal with the San Antonio Spurs. We've heard some spouts there, and that he's not happy with the medical staff. And how big of a role is that going to play in his decision? Whether it be demanding a trade, before next year's over, someone gets a half-year rental of Kawhi Leonard. That would be really interesting, actually. And then when his contract is up, where would he go? We know that Kawhi has been called by some, and I mean by some, so a few people, as the best player in the league, at least the best two-way player. To me, he's the best defensive player in the league when he's healthy. And that's another thing. When he's healthy, I mean, what if he never comes back the same from that injury he suffered in the second round against the Warriors? What if Pachulia stepping underneath his foot when he went up for that jump shot ruined the rest of his career? I mean, God forbid that be the case, but I mean, you have to think about it. I mean, we've seen players never come back the same. I mean, we're seeing it right now with Isaiah Thomas. I mean, granted, it's only been 5 weeks, but he has not looked anything like himself last year. He doesn't even look like a guy that was in Sacramento or Phoenix. I think the Phoenix version of Isaiah Thomas looked a hell of a lot better than he does right now for the Cavs, which is saying something. But Kawhi Leonard, it'll be interesting to see what he does because we know that he will be the number one guy wherever he goes, unless he obviously gets paired up with LeBron James or something like that. But he will be the guy anywhere he wants. So we know that the Spurs like to grow their own players from within the organization. They draft their own players. They're not big free agency guys. So when Kawhi leaves, which I think there's a good possibility of him leaving with the success of LaMarcus Aldridge there in San Antonio. I'm not sure. I mean, this is really crazy to think about. And I know that I started this with the Lakers, but I mean, could you imagine, maybe Kawhi Leonard and Klay Thompson teaming up in LA with Lonzo Ball? I mean, think about that. Think about that lineup. You'd have Lonzo Ball, Klay Thompson, Kawhi Leonard, Brandon Ingram, and whoever you want your center to be. I mean, that's already a ridiculous starting five. That's a playoff team. That's a playoff team right there. And that's insane to think about. And the Lakers are probably going to win 30 games this season, maybe 32, maybe. So when you add that in a couple years, who's to say that they don't, because they're going to be a lottery team. So who's to say that they don't draft another stud like they did Kyle Kuzma? They find another diamond in the rough, I mean, I think the possibilities for them, especially with Magic Johnson having the charisma that he does and being the general manager. I'm not sure if he's the president. I think he might be president of basketball operations and the GM at the same time. But you got to think of the possibilities that the Lakers could be doing in the next couple seasons. And I think that is something to think about. And if you're not thinking about it, I think you need to sit down and just look at the free agency classes and look at the Lakers cap space. Not only that, look at their roster and what they'd be able to do with it. Moving different pieces, moving picks maybe, perhaps. I think it's all good stuff. It's all good stuff. But I think that that is something to look out for maybe over this summer and probably next year. But interesting news. So with all that said, I know there's probably a couple things that I missed that I didn't go over, but this is too juicy not to get into right now. The NBA All-Star break is just 10 days away as of February 7th, and we have our rosters, boys and girls, of course, out there. We have our rosters for the three-point contest, the skills challenge, dunk contest, Rising Stars game, and the All-Star game, of course, that we talked about and have been talking about for the past couple weeks. But let's go ahead and jump into it. Our contestants for the three-point contest, if you haven't heard already, are as follows. Bradley Beal of the Washington Wizards, Wayne Ellington of the Miami Heat, Eric Gordon of the Houston Rockets, Tobias Harris of the Los Angeles Clippers, Klay Thompson of the Golden State Warriors, Paul George from the OKC Thunder, Kyle Lowry of the Toronto Raptors, and Devin Booker of the Phoenix Suns. Now, we definitely have some guys missing that you would think might take another crack at it, guys like Steph Curry, maybe even a Kyle Korver. But I think that even Nick Young, I thought Nick Young might have come back and tried one more time before hanging it up. But I mean, I've definitely got a lot of good contestants here. I think favorites to win it, obviously returning champ Eric Gordon, but I think him, Klay Thompson, Bradley Beal, maybe even Devin Booker, I think all have probably the best odds to win it. I think Wayne Ellington, I think that's really interesting. Honestly, I haven't been paying attention to Wayne Ellington all season, so if he's really shooting that well from behind the arc, then prove me wrong. But maybe a dark horse candidate. Paul George is interesting to me. Him and Tobias Harris both. I don't see them as being fantastic three-point shooters, but they can definitely do it. They're capable, more than capable. Kyle Lowry, to me, always a dark horse. We know that he's a decent three-point shooter and he can get hot, but I wouldn't expect him to win it. It'd be awesome if he won it. I mean, that'd be great for me. I'd love to see another Raptor win that award. But I think that I'm going to go ahead and take either Klay Thompson or Eric Gordon to go ahead and walk away with this. Eric Gordon because he's obviously a returning champ. He's been here before. He's won it before. Klay Thompson's also done it before in the past, but it's been a while, so maybe he's looking to redeem himself. So those two guys I look to go ahead and win the three-point contest. But it should be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to next weekend. It should be a lot of fun, and hopefully afterwards we got a great show for you guys when Rick gets back. But go ahead and moving on to the skills challenge. Now this was interesting, mostly because Kristaps Porzingis was supposed to participate in this event, but obviously unable to do so with his ACL injury. So with that said, the remaining 7 that will participate, because we do not have a replacement for Kristaps as of 2 p.m. February 7th Central Time. So with that said, the remaining 7 contestants will be Donovan Mitchell from the Utah Jazz, Lou Williams from the Los Angeles Clippers, Joel Embiid from the Philadelphia 76ers, Jamal Murray from the Denver Nuggets, Al Horford from the Boston Celtics, Spencer Dinwiddie of the Brooklyn Nets, and Lauri Markkanen of the Chicago Bulls. I think we got a lot of great names here. I think we have a few players that some people may or may not be as familiar with, but have definitely picked it up this season, and I think I have every right to be in here. I mean, it's supposed to be fun, right? And when guys put in the work and they show improvement, I think that they deserve every opportunity in the book to go ahead and compete for one of these challenges. I mean, that's really what it's all about. It's about the fun. It's fun for the game, fun for the players, fun for the fans, and that's what we want. Now, having rookie Donovan Mitchell in there, as well as Lauri Markkanen, I think that's going to be a lot of fun. We got one big and one guard for each respective side, so I look for that to be a good quote unquote matchup, whatever you want to call it. 2 rooks competing in the challenge is always fun. Spencer Dinwiddie is. I like this pick because we know that Brooklyn's not having success right now, but he's having a hell of a season, the best season of his career by far. So I think he deserves to be represented at least by himself, if not for his team. for whatever they've been able to do, whatever positives Brooklyn has had this season. He should be a lot of fun to watch. As well as always Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid is always fun to watch, no matter what he's doing, especially when he's ranting it up on Twitter. We know that he's one of the Twitter kings out there and just, will put anyone out there on blast anytime. He doesn't care. And he's usually pretty good at doing it. So maybe if he wins or doesn't win, we'll hear something from him on Twitter. So with that said, those are your contestants for the Skills Challenge. It should be a good one. Now, getting to my favorite competition, which I was very disappointed in last year's competition. No disrespect to Glenn Robinson III, but the dunk contest last year, not up to par with what it should be. But this year, I think we have some very nice contestants. Victor Oladipo from a few years ago will be returning. Larry Nance Jr. from the Los Angeles Lakers. Victor Oladipo, obviously, from the Indiana Pacers. Dennis Smith Jr. of the Dallas Mavericks will be in it, the rookie. And his other rookie class member, Donovan Mitchell, who's also competing in the Skills Challenge, will be attending the dunk contest as a contestant of the Utah Jazz. Obviously, I've said his name a handful of times already. So this, compared to last year, already blows it out of the water. Completely out of the water. This is probably going to be one of the better dunk contests, discounting the Aaron Gordon versus Zach LaVine dunk contest, and obviously the one where Zach LaVine was by himself. Let's be honest, he was by himself the first time around he won it. That was incredible what he was able to do, especially that Space Jam dunk. I think that was, when you put Michael Jordan, when you put his name and number on your back, and you do something that's in a movie, of all things, folks, in a movie, and you're able to pull that off, I mean, that's absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. Zach LaVine is a one-of-a-kind talent. But getting back to these guys, I think discrediting any dunk contest that Zach LaVine has been in, I think this has got to be up there, at least hype-wise. I mean, this is awesome. We know that Victor Oladipo was in the first go-around with Zach LaVine, and he had some pretty good dunks. The one that really impressed me was the 360 and a half. I think that's 540 if you add it up correctly. I think it's 540 that he did, where he jumped, did a 360, then turned around halfway again, and then threw it down backwards. I thought that was really impressive. It was almost a 720. He couldn't quite get there. But if he's able to pull that off, think about that. If he brought that back and pulled off a 720 in a dunk contest, that would be incredible. I'm also interested to see what the other guys do. Like Larry Nance, we always have at least one big guy in it. And sometimes the bigs get really creative because they don't look as flashy because they're bigger than everyone else that's competing, right? So it would be interesting to see what Larry Nance does. We know that he can jump, though. For being a big guy, I think he's like 6'8", 6'9". He's pretty tall, but he can still jump out the gym. And he's really lanky, so I'm sure that we'll be able to see something creative, something new from him. Especially, he's a Laker. He's got to put on a show. And then Dennis Smith Jr. and Donovan Mitchell, the rookies, we'll have to see what they can do. But Dennis Smith Jr., he is explosive, as well as Donovan Mitchell. But other than that, I'm really looking forward to the dunk contest this year. It should be a fun one, and I am definitely looking forward to it. And then getting on to the rookie sophomore quote unquote game, the Rising Stars Challenge. It's going to be Team USA versus Team World again. I know they did this last year, and I'm pretty sure they did it the year before that as well. I'm not sure when they changed the format. I think it was 2014 or 15 maybe. I usually don't watch this game. I watch the highlights of it, mostly because I like watching the All-Star game. I mean, that's just more fun, let's be honest. I mean, we all catch the highlights from it, but it's usually just not as action-packed as the All-Star game. But there are some interesting names here that may or may not persuade you to actually watch the game in its entirety. Team USA consisting of Lonzo Ball from the Los Angeles Lakers, Jaylen Brown from the Boston Celtics, John Collins of the Atlanta Hawks, Chris Dunn of the Chicago Bulls, Brandon Ingram of the LA Lakers, Kyle Kuzma of the LA Lakers. Lakers have 3 guys on this Team USA team. Dennis Smith Jr. of the Dallas Mavericks, Jason Tatum of the Boston Celtics, Taurean Prince of the Atlanta Hawks, and Malcolm Brogdon from the Milwaukee Bucks was supposed to be participating in this event, but he is hurt at the moment, and they are looking for a replacement for him as of now. So it'll be interesting to see who they select for this. I do not see Donovan Mitchell's name on this list, so maybe he'll be participating in all 3 events, which would be, I'm not sure if that would be a first, but it sounds like that would be a first. Someone competing in the skills challenge, dunk contest, and Rising Stars game all in 1 year. That would be incredible. And honestly, that would probably build hype for him to win Rookie of the Year. Him just, putting forth the effort to want to compete in all of these different events on top of the season that he's already been having. But I still think Ben Simmons is front runner. If not, oh man, Donovan Mitchell is right on his heels. I'll tell you what. But moving over to Team World, the other squad of rookies and sophomores, we have Bogdan Bogdanović of the Sacramento Kings, Dylan Brooks of the Memphis Grizzlies, Joel Embiid returning this year from the Philadelphia 76ers, Buddy Hield of the Sacramento Kings, Lauri Markkanen of the Chicago Bulls, Jamal Murray of the Denver Nuggets. Oh man, I'm going to struggle with this. Frank Ntilikina. Frank from the New York Knicks. You know who I'm talking about. Domantas Sabonis of the Indiana Pacers, Dario Saric of the Philadelphia 76ers, and Ben Simmons of the Philadelphia 76ers. So the Sixers have 3 guys on Team World, and not only that, they're all starters. Saric, Simmons, and Embiid all start for the Sixers. So you have 3/5 of the Philadelphia 76ers starting lineup playing for Team World. So that is definitely an advantage for them. I think this is actually, with the talent that's here, like I said, this might actually be one of the better ones that we've seen in the past few years. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. I might actually sit down and watch this game. I'm really intrigued by all the talent, mostly because this rookie class has turned out better than what I expected it to be. So it should be a good game. I'm definitely going to look forward to it. Hopefully get through the whole thing. I should get through the whole thing. But having said that, what's really interesting is I saw that the NBA is coming out with the Rising Stars jerseys, and Team USA is going to pay homage to the original Minneapolis Lakers before they went to Los Angeles with their baby blue and gold jerseys that they have with that had MPLS, I think is what it was, on it, with the state of Minnesota. So that is really interesting to think about. I've seen concepts for it. I'm not sure if they're the real thing, but instead of having MPLS on it, it says USA with the color scheme, and it's designed almost exactly like the classic jerseys. I think if you saw the Lakers play this season, they've worn them a handful of times. Quote-unquote throwbacks, but they're like new throwback jerseys, but they're still like the baby blue and gold. So if you look at those, if you could imagine, instead of it saying MLPS or Lakers or whatever it says USA and then the number. So it actually looks really cool. I like the concept of it. And then for Team World, this was, I thought, even better. Their concept that they're using for their jerseys pay homage to the original Clippers, the Buffalo Braves of the 1970s. So they have orange, black, and white jerseys. They look really cool. If you go back and try to find pictures of Buffalo Braves uniforms, you could see that where they got the idea from. It doesn't have the B on it or the black, white, and orange stripe, but they're still orange. And then the shorts look almost identical. The jerseys have changed a little bit. But if you go look them up and you put them side by side, you can see the differences if you compare the two. But they look really clean. And I think it's awesome because we don't have a lot of orange jerseys in the NBA as it is. I think Phoenix is the only team that uses them. But they are awesome looking. And if you're going to watch the game, I mean, if you're not going to watch the game, but you're going to tune in, at least tune in to check out these jerseys because they are awesome. And if you're a fan of any of these teams, you're going to have to pick up, if you're a Sixers fan, you got to get that Embiid jersey, the Buffalo Braves Team World Embiid jersey. Or if you're a Bulls fan, get that Markkanen jersey or something like that. They're definitely going to be a collector's item, I'm telling you right now, because they look clean. But having said that, it should be a really good game. And then getting on to the final event in the NBA All-Star Weekend, the NBA All-Star Game, Team LeBron versus Steph Curry. I'm still going Team LeBron. I know that he's had those injuries, but I mean, he's picked up Paul George, Andre Drummond, Goran Dragic. Goran Dragic, I'm not too excited about. I mean, I'm glad that he got his All-Star nod because he probably deserved it for all the work that he's put in. But I just think that LeBron, especially having Paul George, I mean, we know that the connection is there. We know that he's lost DeMarcus Cousins, but he's still got Anthony Davis. I just think that LeBron still has too much firepower for Team Steph. So I'm going to ride Team LeBron to win this game. I still expect it to be high scoring because we know. Actually, you know what? I don't think it's going to be as high scoring because we know that Adam Silver put in that $100K bonus checks for the winner. So actually, I probably expect it to be, not closer to 200, maybe closer to like the 140, 150 range this time around. Like maximum. It may even be as low as like 120, 130. It's going to be really interesting to watch, especially the format that they have out this year. By the way, the All-Star jerseys look really nice, the black and white, the simplicity. It looks great. I'm a big fan. Now, who's going to wear what? I'm not sure, which is going to be interesting. I mean, I'm not sure if they have that out yet or not. I'll probably have to look into it. But no, I'm really excited for All-Star Weekend. But that's going to do it here for the GRCV Hoops podcast. If you like what you heard, please go subscribe to our social media outlets on Facebook and Twitter. You can also check us out on iTunes at GRCV Hoops. Other than that, I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. I had a lot of fun making it. Ricardo will be back in a couple weeks, back at the table with me. Until then, my name is Gavin Campbell, and we'll see you next time.